My pleasure to give the next word to Tim, CEO and co-founder at Correlated.
Obviously, what we are seeing SDRs do, what that looks like and how that's different than traditional motion. We're going to go into a little bit more on the specific kind of tactics right now. So let's dive into some actual tangible email examples that have been successful for SDRs that are using.
My pleasure to give the next word to Tim, CEO and co-founder at Correlated. Prior to founding Correlated, Tim was an early executive team member at two data and analytics startups. Tim has led sales, partnerships, and go-to-market teams throughout his career and has witnessed the transition to product-led growth as go-to-market motion firsthand. Hi, Tim. Great to have you. Welcome. I won't take up more of your time. The floor is yours. I think you're on mute. Yeah, perfect.
Thanks so much for the intro, and I love going after Will. We had a great time at SaaSter a few weeks ago, threw a party together, Lavender and Correlated. So love to see his insights. So yeah, happy to dive in a little bit more to kind of how we're helping SDR teams at PLG companies, and more than just kind of our product. Obviously, what we are seeing SDRs do at product-led growth companies, like what that looks like and how that's different than traditional motion. So I'm going to spend a little bit of time going into kind of what is PLG, and then I want to go into a little bit more on kind of some of the specific tactics that SDRs at PLG companies can utilize. As I'm diving in, I'd love to see actually in the comments, maybe as I'm getting started here, you can raise your hand or throw an emoji in or something. Are you kind of on the sales side, go-to-market side at a PLG company? If you're not sure what PLG means, I'll go into the definition in a second, but we'd love to just see kind of a show of hands of who's in there. I see, okay, Correlated, wow. That's great to see. I already got the kind of intro of me out just a second ago. I'm the CEO and co-founder at Correlated. We're helping to build a platform to help go-to-market teams use product usage data as intent signals to drive pipeline and conversion from your self-serve user base. So let me start with a little bit on exactly what PLG is. It's a buzzword, I think, a three-letter acronym that people are kind of throwing around all the time. I want to take just a second to maybe define it, and then going a little bit more on specifically how kind of SDRs and go-to-market teams can work effectively at a PLG company. So product-led growth is basically a growth model where product usage and the product itself drives kind of all of the kind of go-to-market motions of a given company. And the sort of hallmark of PLG is basically you have a seamless, frictionless way for individual users to sign up and start using the product without having to request a demo, talk to sales, fill out a form, any of those kind of things. You can just kind of get into the product and start using it without kind of any impediments. And this is a huge kind of change for B2B in particular, because it means that the go-to-market motions, the kind of entire sort of operational methods that you might use for go-to-market as an SDR or other teams, marketing, sales, operations, customer success, et cetera, all those things can change in PLG, and in fact end up changing quite a bit. And we'll go into a little bit more specifically for SDRs of how that happens. And the main reason why is because once you give sort of the keys over to individual users and people who are part of companies to start using your product on their own, you no longer have that kind of linear path of sign up, request a demo, sales qualifies, whether it's an opportunity or an SDR qualifies. You then go through a negotiation process or maybe a trial, and then you close and then hand it to customer success. All of a sudden, that entire very clean linear motion is converted into a much messier but much more powerful in a lot of ways motion that is a little bit less clear. And so we're going to try and make things a bit more clear during this presentation. So I think one of the biggest kind of misconceptions is that SDRs or sales and product-led growth don't go together. I think historically there's been a lot of maybe commentary that PLG just means self-serve. That the successful companies in PLG don't have sales teams. That actually couldn't be further from the truth. We see that a huge majority of PLG companies actually have sales teams. So close to 100%, close to all of them have sales teams, in fact. And then if you actually look at some of the most successful PLG companies, examples include companies like Slack or Zoom or Calendly. These are products many of you might use today or have used before. They all have sales teams working for them. So it's not that there's no sales at all, no SDRs at all at PLG. Quite the contrary. I think the big difference is those sales teams are often doing different things to be successful, and we want to talk a little bit more about what those different things are. But I think one of the other things that might, be really important for SDR teams that are kind of mixing between inbound and outbound, and I'm not going to spend much time at all talking about sort of cold outbound tactics and strategies that I think other folks who are speaking today are talking about. I'm going to spend a lot more time talking about inbound and how do you capture that intent and think about that intent. And so one of the things that PLG I think presents is a different way of looking at inbound intent. And historically, the way that a lot of marketing teams have enabled the SDR side of the house is saying, hey, here's what we are considering a marketing qualified lead. You should chase that up with sequences, with all the fun techniques that you might have deployed to try and get someone to respond. There's different ways of doing marketing qualified leads, and I'm not going to spend too much time talking specifically about that, but there's gradations of intent and looking at website behavior as a big one. Are they on the pricing page? Did they request a demo as maybe one of the top ones, and on from there. With PLG, there's actually this concept of product qualified leads, and essentially that is a sign of intent for a PLG company, and the P in the PQL stands for what kind of behavior in the product might indicate that this particular user and that the account that they're part of is actually ready for a buying conversation or something that's more relevant for SDRs. So let's break into what a PQL is and how to define it. I think the biggest sort of difference between a PQL and an MQL is that oftentimes PQLs actually incorporate a lot of what goes into an MQL as part of the definition for PQL. So you could look at things like firmographic fit. You could look at things like, did they look at the pricing page? You could look at things like their title. So when I say firmographic fit, I mean like the company. Are they in your ICP? Title or demographic fit might be something like, are they a VP? Do they have a decision-making authority? All that can kind of go into a PQL. The big thing that's added there, though, is are they using the product in such a way as to maybe indicate that they are getting value from it, that their team is getting value from it, that there's more adoption. Maybe they're already paying on a credit card and they're starting to see spend, and you can then go and try and upsell them from the low tier credit card spend that they're doing now, the $100 a month, to $1,000 a month or $5,000 a month, whatever the case may be. So there's a lot of different tactics that can go into just the qualifying criteria that inevitably bleed into what you should say as an SDR and the type of sort of content-based tactics you can take. But these are kind of the big differences between a PQL and an MQL, and some of the ways to define a PQL. I think the other thing that we mentioned on this slide, there can be actually many different times when a particular user or an account becomes a product qualified lead or product qualified account. It's not just at the sort of beginning of that buyer's journey, because remember, there's no longer this linear path that I said before where someone requests a demo, signs up, then sales qualifies them, SDR qualifies them, and they become a closed won customer. Now it's this path that's a lot more circular. You might sign up for the product, you start using it, you swipe your credit card, so you become a customer, but you could become a bigger customer. You can become expanded or upsold to. And so we see SDR teams in a lot of these PLG companies looking at what's called that customer lifecycle or customer journey. And there might be different PQL thresholds that they hit throughout that, and then different ways to add content in and try and get them to talk to you and have have buying conversations. So we're going to go into a little bit more on the specific kind of tactics right now. But those are some of the things I think are worth highlighting. PQLs and MQLs are kind of the difference between qualifying criteria. I think at the end of the day, what you're trying to do as an SDR at a PLG company is you're trying to reach the right person at the right time with the right message. Probably anybody on an SDR role would say that's the goal. And I think the power of PQLs and the power of PLG is that you can actually use that data to really figure out who the right person is, the timing there, the right time, and then obviously based on their usage of the product, what the message should be. So let's dive into some actual tangible email examples that have been successful for SDRs that are using product usage data. So I think, before I go into the good one, it's always nice to go into ones that maybe aren't quite as good. So I think, one of the things that we see, and apologies if it's a little, blow up my screen here so I can read it. One of the things that we often see, and this was Breezy, I think, answering questions in the comments, so feel free to throw her questions. Breezy here at Correlated, she gets a lot of cold emails. And I think, one thing that's pretty common for SDRs to do is they'll say, hey, here's like something that, I noticed on your LinkedIn or something to try and personalize it. And that's okay. I think, though, in this particular example, we were already using this product. And so rather than doing kind of that, personalized approach based on something that the SDR read on LinkedIn, you could have actually used this as an opportunity to mention Breezy's usage of the product already. And we're going to get into how that can work. But I think that's one of the biggest misses that we often see SDRs at PLG companies not leverage the kind of usage of a customer that's already been trialing or even a paid customer, not leverage that usage in their outbound because it's much more relevant if you do. Much more likely to get a response. So this is another example of something that we find as, not always as successful. This is a case where we signed up, we started to use this product and evaluate it on our own, which is a hallmark of PLG, a hallmark of self-serve products. Rather than having to talk to sales, you can start looking at the product on your own and seeing, is this a fit for my needs? This is a fit for my organization's needs. Rather than saying, hey, I saw that you didn't activate this integration. You started to build this particular thing in our product, but then you stopped, or I saw you go all the way and you built this. Rather than kind of using that product usage that I was doing in the product and then informing kind of the content and personalizing it as a result, there was just this kind of much more impersonal sequence that basically said, because I signed up for the product, I'm a product qualified lead. So I think not only was it not personalized, it also didn't look at my usage of the product to say, hey, Tim's actually really engaging in this certain way. So that should really tip him over into being a PQL. And as a result, I'm going to reach out. So it was, not personalized, maybe the wrong time because I wasn't really fully engaged with the product. And, as a result, it was a bit of a missed opportunity. The last one that's not great. So I think actually this one I'm on the fence about. I would say actually this isn't terrible. And so in this particular case, we're using the product. We could be using it a little bit more. And I think the sales team knows that we might be using a competitive product and have a lot of our spend there. And so they're saying, hey, maybe we can have a consolidation play here. This is a bit of a bait and switch where basically they said, hey, there's security things you should be aware of in your usage of our product. Can we talk about them? Now, I think in my mind, this is actually okay because they're indicating based on analyzing our usage, there's some value that they can add by saying, hey, there's ways that we can make your usage of our product better, more secure in this case. And that actually is valuable. We'd want to know, because they're the experts on their product, how can we use it better? And if there's security issues, like that's maybe a problem that we would want to address and fix. So while I say this is, a flying blind situation, I actually kind of go 50-50 on this one. This isn't awful. I think it could be better because they could maybe spell out a little bit more precisely what's going on, but I give them a kind of a halfway thumbs up on this one. Here's where we get into kind of really good ones in my mind. So HubSpot is actually great at this. They have instrumented, and by that I mean they put a lot of kind of analytics in their product usage. And a huge part of what makes them successful as a business is they do cross sell and upsell. So you might have purchased one module of HubSpot, maybe marketing automation, which was kind of their original product, but they have this whole suite of other products. Sales, some of you may be using the sales engagement, the CRM, their operations hub, the service hub, all these different places that you can expand usage and obviously expand your paid relationship with HubSpot. And so what they do, which is a very tried and true but commendable strategy, is they'll say, based on your browsing of their website or the product itself, are you going into product areas that you haven't purchased? Are you going into parts of the website for areas that you haven't purchased? They'll look at what you have purchased and then see that you haven't purchased this piece and then immediately trigger what I believe is an automated email, or it could be manual, but I'm pretty sure it's automated. They'll immediately trigger an automated email saying, "Hey, I saw you checking out, in this case, sequences. Can we, answer any questions about that?" Pretty short and sweet, call to action saying, "Hey, happy to tell you more about this." And I think the best thing about it in my mind is that they're specifically referencing the fact that I'm starting to research or look into those features that I don't have access to. And it's a sign of intent, the fact that I'm going in the product and looking at those features. And they're just simply saying, "Hey, happy to talk about it, happy to try and capture kind of that intent moment as it's happening." Because this email was sent, pretty much immediately after I sent it. So it's probably an automated send. So I really like this one. I think they're doing a great job with this particular tactic, mentioning the product usage and the fact that I was kind of looking at that core product. Another tactic that I think anyone can employ. So obviously HubSpot has multi-product portfolio. Not every company is a $15 billion public company with multiple products to sell. Maybe you just have a single product. Stripe, big company as well. But I think in this particular case, they were talking about our usage of Stripe and that I hadn't completed, a usage of other product where a key integration is Stripe, and that I hadn't connected or finished connecting that integration. So I really like this one a lot because it ties into what makes for successful PLG tactics where for SDRs, where you can basically say, "Hey, look, I saw that you went somewhere farther down the line in our product usage, but then you stopped at a key point. Can I help you be successful with the product?" It's less about selling. It's more about enabling someone with the product, which could then, if they're enabled, you book time. You can always get someone on the phone and then qualify whether or not it's a real opportunity, and then obviously end up in a commercial conversation. So I really like this tactic a lot. I wanted to get through mine to get us back on schedule, so I went somewhat quickly, but I'm going to come out of full screen now so I can look at the comments, and I'm happy to answer. And I see Breezy's kind of been in there mixing it up, but please let me know if you have any questions. I think I made it more or less in time here. That's it. We're now at a Q&A. I'm looking through. All right.
Hey, Tim, I just thought I'd jump in really quickly. Some people were saying that they weren't able to read the templates in the presentation. I thought if maybe we could go back and if you could maybe read them out loud. I think we're going to share the slides later, but maybe we could go through them. Yeah, I also put the full screen, but I couldn't see. Okay.
Yeah, sorry. That's just my, presentation, skills at display here. So I'll say this one. So I'll just read the ones out in order. I think there were 5. So this one is enhancing customer connection as you grow. Breezy, I really appreciate your take on community and social marketing in this LinkedIn post. So good personalization around LinkedIn. Coming off your seed round, huge congrats. Curious if you're planning on maintaining a deep connection with your customer base as you grow. Thought it relevant to reach out as a number of SaaS companies, blah, blah, blah. Marketing experiences, deep relationship with customers. Any interest in learning more over a cup of coffee? And I can't remember exactly which one this was, but I'm pretty sure we had used the product or Breezy had demoed the product before, trialed it before. And so the fact that they didn't reference that was a miss in our mind. This one, where we were actively trialing the product, said, "Hey, Tim, notice you began exploration of Correlated's the product's organization. Congrats, you're well on the way to making impactful decisions fueled by data. But now what? How are you looking to get insight on how successful Correlated is when looking at deep product analytics, revenue reports, et cetera, and you're just exploring what you can achieve in a trial? I think in my mind, oh, thanks, Breezy. For that prior example, Breezy mentioned we were already a paid customer. So that's, a miss. I think, obviously not knowing that. In this example, they could have used, as we saw in later successful examples, actual, what we were doing in the product to try and then further personalize it, saying, hey, I saw that you connected, in this case, it's an analytics product, so maybe connected Snowflake, a data warehouse, which is a core integration that they would be sitting on top of. Are you having any issues with, connecting your data in Snowflake to this product? So I think there's tons of opportunities based on the type of integrations that your product has, kind of what people are doing in their trial, that this particular person missed on. This one's actually hard for me to read, so I'm going to go back into full screen. Hello, Tim and John. I'm the solutions architect in your blank account team. Nice to meet you. I'm reaching out to let you know there's some security items I would like to discuss with the appropriate person at Correlated. And then it's asking for the right person. So, I think the vague mention of security items, that's going to get your attention, right? If John's my CTO, he's responsible for the security of our product, and we're using the service already, we're customers. So I think vaguely mentioning potential security issues, definitely good to get someone's attention. So it was, again, 50-50. They could have gone a little bit more, but it wasn't the worst. Okay, this is the great HubSpot example. Hi, Tim. I noticed you recently tried to use sequences. Do you have any questions about how to make the most of HubSpot's features? And then it's asking for personal tour. You can book time. Short and sweet. I think following some of Will's examples around 50 words or less. Pretty sure this is less than that. So I like that one. And then this one, I think this is the last one. I'm going to go full screen. Hi, Tim. It looks like you signed up for a trial of X and connected Stripe. So referencing the actual usage of the product, which integration I'm using. Stripe is one of several that you could use. So I can already tell that they know what we're doing in the product, which is great. It doesn't look like you completed the integration. So that's even going further and saying, not only do I know that you tried to connect one of several, Stripe being the one, but you haven't finished it. So they have clearly identified kind of where we are in the usage of their product. And then they're sending a timely email offering to help. So I think this is kind of the best example of the kind of emails that really convert for PLG, because it's indicating a deep knowledge that that you're using the product, how you're using it, et cetera, and then offering obviously to book time. So those are the emails, and now the Q&A was the last one there. So sorry for the poor production values. That's all on me. But yeah, we'll send the deck around so you can see it afterwards.
No worries. We actually have some questions in the chat. I'm going to put them up for you now.
Great.
Yes. So I have the first one about the PQL is widely used for SaaS products, right?
You would think so. Breezy might have the data. I think there was some. It's like 20%. So 80% of companies aren't using it. But maybe Breezy, if you have it on hand, the actual number. I think it's becoming a lot more popular. And selfishly, Correlated, we help you build PQL, so it's one of the things that we do. I think that a lot of SaaS companies are starting to do it more, but it's not as leveraged as you might think, or we believe you should leverage it.
Perfect, thank you. I believe this one was already answered by Breezy in chat, but maybe you can also comment on whether the PQL are handled by customer success or SDRs, rather.
Yeah, we see both. So I think there's definitely different strategies depending on kind of that customer life cycle. So if you're kind of more of a trialing account, or maybe that example with the Stripe integration, you might actually have an SDR do that and say, hey, I saw you're just trying it out. You signed up a second ago and you didn't complete. Can we get on a call and maybe I'll bring in someone from CS, but it's kind of more the SDR to kind of qualify and validate. I think what we see often at PLG companies where you're already spending, maybe you're on a credit card, you're spending $500, $1,000, whatever the case may be. They'll have teams that are more customer success oriented, that are handling kind of those smaller customers on a self-serve plan to see if maybe they should be passed on to sales. We've heard the term CSQL, so a qualified lead from customer success in that case. I do think there's rules here that are still formulated. So we've definitely seen it both ways, where CS can be involved here, where SDRs can be involved. So it's not one or the other, and I think the playbooks are still being written.
Yes, indeed. Thank you. And I have one final question about using a PQL model in a service-based business or service-based model.
And just to make sure I understand service-based, is that kind of less of a software? It's more of a consulting. I think the answer I'd give you there is if there's any customer touch points that are digital in your business, that's where something like a PQL could make sense. I think, where PQLs really help, it's looking at the analytics around, usage of the product, which is, collected digitally. So that's kind of one of the biggest, unique aspects of it. So if you have any touch points with customers, whether it's some sort of portal or some sort of analytics you can drive around your services business that might indicate intent, or higher intent, then I think that could go into something like a PQL or maybe a version of an MQL. So I wouldn't rule it out.
Indeed. Perfect. Thank you. I personally don't have any more questions. I think we are okay in chat. If you have any final comments before we let you go, then.
All right. I don't have anything else to add, but I really appreciate the opportunity, and thanks so much for the questions. And if you need anything, I'm Tim at getcorrelated.com. Shoot me an email, and I read them all. So happy to reply.
Thank you, Tim. Thank you, Breezy, as well. She helped out in chat a lot.
Thanks, Breezy.
It was nice to have you today.
Appreciate it. See ya.
Okay. Bye. See ya. Thanks, Tim.